What the barnacles is going on here?
I'm trying to tell you something, Sponge Boy.
Hey, that's SpongeBob to you.
Oh yeah, we're so back. Since the beginning of time, Super Smash Bros. Has always been the king of the platform fighter genre, and while there were a few smaller attempts to dethrone it, nothing particularly stuck around too long, fading from existence for a number of reasons. Well, that story seems to finally be changing, so let's start from the beginning.
Rewind.
Two years ago, we saw the release of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, a pretty competent platform fighter that helped fill the void Smash Bros. Left behind for the following 12 months. Yes, it had its fair share of problems when it first launched, notably lacking standard stuff that should have really been included from the get-go, such as voice acting, items, costumes, etc. These things would eventually get added alongside the paid DLC characters, Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot, making her grand return to video games, Hugh Neutron, and Rocko, further pushing the game closer to its full potential by building onto the core gameplay, which was already pretty solid to begin with. And once Rocko's DLC dropped, the folks over at Ludosity and Fair Play Labs were like, let's totally flip what people thought about the first game on its head and blow it out of the water for the sequel. 1 year later, and Nicktoons All-Star Brawl 2, that's actually got a nice ring to it, is finally here. Fully rebuilt from the ground up, an even bigger roster, and loads of brand new features including a story mode. I'll be getting into that a bit later, but first, and just like with the first game, major shout out to GameMill for providing me with an early review copy for the Ultimate Edition on PS4, granting me access to exclusive costumes for each character, the upcoming Season Pass characters like Mr. Krabs, and the exclusive Quickster costume for SpongeBob, which by the way, if you're on PlayStation, you'll need to go download it individually. As to why it wasn't already included, I don't know. Either way, very much appreciated, and without further ado, let's dive into this brain blast of a game, and see if it's worth the hype or even being worthy to claim the title of the Smash Killer like everyone made claim with the first game. Actually, let's go ahead and jump right into that. As we all know, Smash Bros. Is the literal king of platform fighters, so naturally once news of Sora being the final addition to Smash Ultimate, and the series as a whole having an uncertain future, competition was already starting up with the first Nick Brawl and Multiverses. Long story short, interest in both games started winding down for a number of reasons. Both games were certainly fun, although pretty flawed experiences. In other words, they were definitely not Smash Killer material. More like, there's potential here, but they just gotta build upon it. So, am I saying Nick Brawl 2 has finally reached that goal? Well, I don't want to sound like I'm blowing things out of proportion, but they somehow managed to rival Smash Bros. Yeah, I know, a Nicktoons game actually standing a chance against Smash Bros. Crazy times indeed. Look, I'm pretty addicted to this game honestly, to the point I took every available opportunity from the day I got the code on November 4th all the way to November 6th, the day before launch. I was that determined to finish the campaign on hard mode once. As far as platform fighters go, I personally haven't done this since picking up Smash Ultimate shortly after the first Nick Brawl dropped, which I sadly put down after about a week and picked it back up whenever there was a major update like characters and voice acting. This time around though, even after finishing the campaign mode, I'm already itching to get back into the game as we speak. It's that good. Don't believe me? Then look at IGN out here giving the game a 9 out of 10. Part of that comes down to the completely revamped, well, everything. From the art style and character models better capturing the energy of the respective shows on the roster, which, despite several characters being cut from the first game, range from the big boys like SpongeBob and TMNT, the early 2000s icons with Danny Phantom, Jimmy Neutron, and Teenage Robot being my mains. The Angry Beavers and Rocko representing the pre-SpongeBob era, and El Tigre being the hero that was gone too soon with only one season under its belt. Either way, they all have a redesigned yet distinct playstyle, and overall play really good, especially in comparison to the first game. Not to mention the inclusion of voice acting allows for proper interactions between these characters, and the greater story mode of course, which I will be coming back to a bit later. The menus and overall presentation got a massive overhaul, showing signs of a major budget increase before even getting to the actual gameplay. I mean, look at this! The characters dance to the jukebox. That's adorable! Speaking of music, the soundtrack from the first game has been completely remastered, easily knocking the originals into the stratosphere. In addition to the new stage soundtracks going harder than they need to be, Hardcore Chores, Jimmy's Lab, Tremerton Joyride, and Sewer Slam are some of the best tracks in the game, there's no debate. Heck, even the stages themselves are pretty big upgrades compared to the original. They even feature multiple variants of each. But most importantly, it's the gameplay being rebuilt from the ground up. If I could describe it in as few words as possible, it'd be fast, chaotic, precise, strategic, and slimed. I know, it's low-hanging fruit, but I'm legally required to say that. Totally not being sarcastic. In the first game, it became very easy to cheese your way to victory no matter the scenario, whether against CPUs or other players. In the sequel, the gameplay is a bit more involved, always keeping you on your toes and ready to move at a moment's notice. While you can still find ways to cheese a fight with infinite combos, such as Jenny's Mighty Mallets or SpongeBob's clapping, these tricks don't last very long thanks to a brand new skill called Slime Canceling, allowing you to break out of a seemingly infinite combo. This is just one of the ways slime changes the game in a big way. Cause when used correctly, the new slime meter can enhance literally any move in your arsenal. From more powerful attacks, extra recovery height, and everything in between, giving you the upper edge in any scenario and keeping you in the fight for just a bit longer. Let it charge all the way, time your shot correctly, and you can activate all new super moves. This game's equivalent to final smashes in Smash Bros., and often leads to doom for anyone caught in their path. With Nigel's being the most ridiculous of the bunch, and we can't help but to laugh every single time. Most of these were actually shown off in the various character showcases leading up to launch, which I refrained from spoiling myself on most of them until launch, and it's part of a reason why I kinda went quiet when it came to talking about this game. I simply wanted to go in as blind as possible, and it paid off big time. Also worth pointing out, certain characters have unique power meters, similar to the ones found in Smash Bros. In some cases, they'll enhance attacks even farther, others will summon a controllable companion, or, in the case of the Angry Beavers, tag team swapping between the two at any given time. Now taking what Smash Bros. Accomplished with all its gameplay perks, and combining the slime mechanic on top of it all, this is a recipe for success and literally changed the game. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if other platform fighters started to adopt a similar mechanic in the future, though probably a bit late for multiverses to incorporate such a thing, since it'll be returning sometime next year. Building onto this, the campaign mode features a roguelike structure, and for those who don't know what that is, it's basically you start from scratch, try to get as far as possible on a given run in order to reach Vlad Plasmius, who's the cause of all this, and gathering resources and power-ups along the way. if you lose, and it took me a while to get a feel for how this works, but you gotta start a given chapter all over again, learn that the hard way, and also the fact you can save your progress at any point, but I was a bit too paranoid to do so, at least until the end when I finally decided to try it. Things you wish you would have known sooner. But you do still keep the materials you've gathered and use them to buy new perks for your character to help you get even farther on your next run. Depending on what perks and power-ups you choose will determine how you perform throughout each run. I highly recommend investing in the intangibility power-up when it appears, as it provides temporary invulnerability upon landing an aerial attack. And also the Ignorance is Bliss perk, make sure to upgrade it to the max level.
Don't forget it!
This whole system brings a lot of variety into the campaign mode, and can make any given run a breeze to get through, but since everything in this mode, from the order of battles to the power-ups made available to you at shops, it's all completely randomized, so you can't just do the same thing every single time and expect it to work. I personally try to take the more varied but also path of least resistance when possible, solely for the purpose of preserving stock lives and gathering resources. Some of those paths of least resistance options being minigames that break up the usual battles. Slime Balloons has you put your character skills to use in popping 10 balloons spread across a small area. In Whack-A-Bot, hit as many bots as possible within the time limit, though it's got a few frame rate issues and, you need an optometrist, pal. And finally, Action Stages, where the goal is to simply get to the exit. This one's similar to one of the classic mode challenges in Smash Ultimate, minus the looming presence of... Honestly, I like this, though I do wish the campaign had some extra variety to the battles themselves, since there's only 3 types of available battle types across the 3 or 4 chapters. Arena sees a bunch of enemies coming at ya, and you gotta do your very best to knock them all away. I appreciate this one cause for as long as World of Light was in Smash Ultimate, you don't fight any smaller hordes of enemies as seen in the classic mode Mural, showing that we might have been possibly able to do this originally, I don't know. Instead, all you ever get to fight was the characters you play as, and the occasional boss. So it did get kinda tiring thanks to the former, which does exist in Nick Brawl 2's campaign as the second type of battle for unlocking new characters to use in the campaign, but the two are so evenly dispersed it had no time to really get tiring.
Thank you!
Then the third battle type are the boss battles, and these guys are seriously tough. That's why I suggest investing in stock lives and intangibility as much as physically possible. The bosses can be played back to back in the boss rush mode, and as much as I enjoy Battle for Bikini Bottom, Nick Brawl 2 has easily the best Flying Dutchman boss ever. No debate. Back to the point though, in the arcade mode you can team up with another character to take down 2 other opponents in a themed match, like the Krusty Krab versus the Chum Bucket, or you can work together to take down a giant robotic Reptar. Give me more of this in the campaign mode. Honestly though, I thought the roguelike mechanics would be a detriment to how enjoyable the campaign is, compared to World of Light's progression system, but once I finally understood it, I definitely see the appeal and why it fits within the context of the greater story, which is told through the eyes of whatever character you decide to use for the long haul, resulting in their own unique storyline and interactions. This right here already adds a ton more reason to replay through the campaign multiple times, especially if you grew up with the classic Nicktoons. I mean, seeing SpongeBob interacting with Clockwork, no. Not the one from Sly Cooper, I'm talking about the one from Danny Phantom. Or Jenny having extended conversations with Nora for the first time since the show ended way back in 2007. Definitely my favorite Nicktoon, and it's so surreal that this is a real game. Gone are the days of having voice lines that were almost exclusively quotes from their original episodes, Though I think that was apparent once Nick let Purple Lamp do their own thing with the Cosmic Shake back at the start of the year. Speaking of which, I did review that game, and if you're interested in checking that out, simply click the card in the top right corner. Also consider subscribing and ringing that bell if you enjoyed the videos so far, and if you happen to enjoy classic Nicktoons and platformer games. Anyways, back to the video. The Nicktoons Unite series of games were always interesting to me, cause it brought all these Nicktoons together for a good old multiversal adventure. Seeing these characters interacting was an absolute treat, and this is no different. Though the interactions between the playable characters, aside from the characters originating from the same series, often don't go beyond a single line of dialogue at the start of a fight, and practically nothing else afterward. So that was kinda disappointing, but it wasn't enough to take away from the overall experience. However, I do think some of them could have appeared in the hub world alongside the NPCs, seeing as most of the dialogue exchanges come from the NPCs found in shops like Frida, Hugh, and Gurr, whose voice wasn't correctly pitched when the game launched.
I need tacos! I need them or I'll explode! That happens to me sometimes!
I came for the tacos!
You and your tacos.
But if you pair up a fighter with an NPC character from the same show, you'll get even more dialogue. Really appreciate these small details. The game's hub world, the Timeless Star Dial, is also home to other NPCs. TMNT's Splinter handles the training aspect of the game. As mentioned earlier, Nora Wakeman runs a perk store, selling useful items for the journey ahead. Gaz Membrane from Invader Zim pops up occasionally to poke fun at other video game series, including Animal Crossing. She's responsible for converting one form of in-game currency into another form of in-game currency that can either be used in Nora's or Gary's shops. Gary sells a variety of customization items for the hub world. It doesn't affect how you progress through the story, it just makes the area look more, Nicktoony. But speaking of customization, there's actually a lot more costumes to choose from this time. Even more so if you get the costume pack separate from the Ultimate Edition for $20. Yeah, I feel that's a bit overkill. Nevertheless, this is when I realized that the devs were going all in on the fan service with this game. Aside from reminding us of the era where playable dark versions of characters were everywhere, they also pulled inspiration from a number of sources, and not just from the main shows. Perfect example being one of Jimmy's costumes having been pulled from the Jet Fusion console game. A game that wasn't exactly the best received of the Jimmy Neutron games, which just so happened to be developed by Chrome Studios, the team behind the the Tasmanian Tigre series that I just so happened to have reviewed the 4th entry in the series recently if you're interested in checking that out as well. And most of the costumes for Plankton's robot makes reference to probably the most hated SpongeBob game to date, Plankton's Robotic Revenge. Also gotta mention one of El Tigre's ults has him wearing Puma Loco's sombrero and White Pantera's boots. If this one doesn't ring any bells, that's because this one originates from the unused evil ending of The Good, The Bad, and El Tigre special. Now that's what I call a deep cut. The fan service doesn't just stop at costumes, as the enemies that we see in the campaign mode are also pulled from various points of each show. We've got some clusterbots from My Life as a Teenage Robot, various thugs from the first SpongeBob movie, and the Twonkies from the Jimmy Neutron special and personal favorite game, Attack of the Twonkies. That alone brought a huge smile to my face, to the point I paused the game just to process what I just seen, and that's far more than I expected from this game. The same goes for the story actually. It's not anything too complex, but it was pretty satisfying. Not gonna spoil it, but there was a pretty big twist that I wasn't expecting, so that's pretty cool. Essentially, the non-spoiler version is Danny Phantom villain Vlad Plasmius who by the way has a new VA compared to the show, is trying to control the entire Nicktoons universe via mind control, and Clockwork, whose VA also didn't reprise his role, brings you to this place and tells you to go stop him. There you go, you've got your assignment. All that said, and even though I've been giving almost constant praise for what this game does, but in its current state there's also a few issues just like any other game. I've already showed a few throughout this video, but there's a few that needs to be pointed out and are likely to be addressed in the next patch, which again might have already dropped before this video even goes live. Some of the problems I've come across include massive dips in frame rate in random levels, audio on loading screens can start overlapping, voices can be hard to hear regardless of the music volume. I fell through solid floors once or twice, namely Jellyfish Fields with El Tigre. The Switch and PS4 load times are compared to Sonic 06, though I have my own comparison to Sonic 06, but finish the story, then we'll talk. I'm sure there's other issues I'm not thinking about, but the Season Pass characters are another story altogether. First off is the price alongside the costume pack, and possibly no new stages. Yeah, I'd definitely wait for both to possibly go on sale at some point. And second, I'm only excited for Mr. Krabs, who's coming early next year, and nobody else. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy TMNT, and I've never seen The Last Airbender, but the other three characters in this season pass just aren't interesting to me, and I can see why people are kinda upset over it. Now, I think this could have been avoided if they at least brought back one of the turtles from the first game, lessening the blow of multiple characters being cut, as well as having 2 more shows that haven't been represented yet. I mean, Tough Puppy and Tack definitely deserve some love too. However, they did say that these will be the first DLC characters, meaning there should be more that follow afterward. So for all you Sandy and Oblina mains, or anyone that wants Vexus in the game, there might still be some hope for ya. Overall, this game is a massive love letter to the history and fans of Nicktoons, and I can't wait to see what the team cooks up for Nick Brawl free. Though, since the game currently runs on Unity, it might be a while if they decide to switch to a new engine, given the recent Unity fiasco. That being said, I just took way too much time talking about Nick All-Star Brawl 2, but hey, I've been excited for this game and I'm glad to see it paying off. I also just realized that I didn't even get to mention the online crossplay. The verdict? It's actually pretty solid. And I clearly suck. Anyways guys, that's more than enough from me. I'm out of here, but in my absence, tell me what you thought about Nick Brawl 2. Who's your favorite character, your least favorite character, the best stage, all that kind of stuff. Be sure to leave it all down in the comments section below. Once again, I've been BlueKnight, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for more Nicktoons content. Thank you so much for watching and for the constant support, I greatly appreciate it. And until next time, keep on brawling.